Hi, I'm Nick Dennis and this is Future Ideas, a series for UpNext. In this series we're going to be speaking to new voices, capturing some top ideas and exploring what needs to happen. Today I'm going to be chatting with Emma Barr about how to get more women into public life and how to stop online abuse. So Emma, what motivated you to write your chapter?
Well, I just think it's so important that we have the widest number of people in politics from all backgrounds, and the amount of abuse, particularly online, that women and other minorities and men as well receive is so off-putting, and anything we can do to prevent that and make what's already illegal offline enforced online can only help get more people involved in politics.
But is the problem really that big? Shouldn't women just man up?
Well, firstly, as I said, it's certainly not just women who suffer from this, even though that was the focus of my essay. But no, I don't think anyone should have to deal with the kind of abuse, for instance, Diane Abbott or Esther McVey have had to deal with. It's off-putting for them, and even though they do deal with it, which I'm incredibly respectful of, it puts other people off.
I mean, is it really that bad though?
Yes, I mean, it really is. If you go on Twitter on not just Diane Abbott, but she's probably the person who's, to my mind, suffered the most recently, you go and look at some of the things that people have said about her, and I don't even feel comfortable saying the words that people have said about her, and it's constant. People get hundreds of thousands of abusive messages every time they post, a picture of them going to a local event, and other people see that abuse, even if it doesn't affect the individual involved. Other people read that, and to be honest, even I would think, why would I put myself in that situation?
Have you thought that? I mean, has it made you question wanting to be involved in politics?
It's certainly something that goes into the whole why you'd want to get involved. It's not something that would put me off, but it's definitely one of the negatives.
So how do you cope? I mean, how do people who get, all that abuse, how do they cope with that?
I think, to be honest, I'm certainly not in a position to be getting anywhere near that scale of abuse, but
you shouldn't get any abuse though, really, should you?
Well, no, you shouldn't get any. But as I said, it certainly also isn't about people disagreeing with you online. That, people engage in robust debate, that's fine. This is purely about things that would be illegal offline, and hate crimes, making sure that it's also enforced online.
So, I mean, what do you propose to do about it then?
Well, I think we should have digital on-the-spot fines for people who engage in behaviour that's already illegal offline. If people say that online, then we should fine them, and that's a way of making their behaviour real to them, and as a country and as a society saying this really isn't okay, you cannot speak to people like this. And I think it does disproportionately happen to women. I think this is anecdotal, but from what I've seen, things like, a senior cabinet member people saying that repeating calls for her to be lynched, for example.
Yeah.
I mean, that is just unacceptable. And using derogatory racist language just is never okay. And the fact that somehow people seem to be not called out on it is similar to sort of as a society us saying that it's okay, and it's not.
Some people seem to think when they go online and they're sat behind a computer, they can behave in a way that they know is completely unacceptable. Like if we were having this chat here, and what I wonder what really makes them think that you are not a human being. Diane Abbott is not a human being. And if you look at the Prime Minister's Twitter account, for example, when she posts a message, it could be she's met a couple who've done a great thing for charity. You just look at all the replies underneath, and there is some horrible stuff, personal stuff.
Yeah, and I just think that, with politicians in particular and other public figures, people don't see them as actual human beings, which is completely wrong. And I think that extends to anyone now people talk to on the internet. It could be, I've seen it happen to, again, mostly girls, but not just girls, young Conservative campaigners, young Labour activists too, on Twitter. And these are, I don't know, 20-something-year-olds. They're students. They're getting streams of abuse from people who clearly don't know them, know nothing about them, and they're making comments about, their sexuality and what they look like, when all they've written is, I agree that it would be good to have more equality in our country. It's absolutely absurd.
While I agree with all of that, your idea of a fine sounds dangerously slipping into sort of curtailing freedom of speech?
It's absolutely not. It's about enforcing the existing law. There shouldn't be a difference between what you would say to someone, in conversation or at an event, or something that you would be in trouble for shouting outside. For example, thinking of Tommy Robinson right now, but thinking something that you would shout outside a courtroom, that's obviously unacceptable. Obviously, he faced the consequences. That shouldn't be different to what people say online. It's the same thing. It's just people are hiding behind an anonymous cloak.
Yes, because at the moment the online world feels a bit like the Wild West.
Yeah.
Really, anything goes, which allows people, I think, to sort of visit the darker recesses of their mind and say whatever they want to say.
And I also think that it dehumanises their victims. But I don't think that, I suspect anyway, that a lot of the people who have said these things wouldn't say it to someone's face. And not necessarily because they would be scared of what would happen, but just because they would feel like that was the wrong thing to do.
If a friend came to you and said, look, I want to get involved in politics, I'm interested in changing the world to make it a better place, but actually I don't know if I can cope with essentially the barrage of abuse that I'm going to get, that I see, even yourself get, or let alone high-profile activists. I know plenty of candidates, the general female Conservative candidates, general election, who are barrage with the constant abuse. I mean, what would your advice to that person be?
Firstly, I'd say that there are so many more positives than there are negatives. When you look at MPs like Victoria Atkins, Mims Davis, Esther McVeigh, when they talk about being an MP, they literally all say it's the best job in the world. You have an opportunity to change people's lives for the better. You can affect how our country is governed. Well, you are governing our country, so obviously you can affect it. And even at a lower level, you can make such a difference to people. And it's also really fun, it's really exciting, you meet incredible people, and this is a negative side, but it's so far outweighed by the positives. And also, if you are thinking of getting involved and you think you'd be good, then there is, I think, some level of responsibility, because when I think of, I used to work for Women to Win, and we always say women's life experiences, they're not better than men's, they're not worse than men's, but they are different. And if we want to have a parliament that truly reflects the country it wants to represent, then we really need women's voices at the table. And if you think that you'd be good, be courageous, go for it, because honestly, it's brilliant. And I'm not an MP, and I think it's brilliant, so they must be having a great time.
So obviously your chapter actually covers more than just online abuse. It talks about essentially getting more women and other minority groups into sort of like the public arena. Why do you think there's a problem at the moment?
I don't think that, not just any particular party actually, I think that we haven't done enough to encourage people to come forward. I don't think the problem is necessarily with good women not getting through and good people from different socioeconomic backgrounds coming through, or different parts of the country getting through. I think it's that they're not encouraged to put themselves forward. And a lot of the time I don't think people think it's an option for them. They think, for different careers, they might want to go into the police, they might want to be a footballer or be a lawyer. They don't think, oh, I'll become a member of parliament, because it's just not something that they really hear about on a day-to-day basis. So I think we all have a responsibility, everyone in politics, whatever party, to go out there and start talking to people going to schools, talking to people from different backgrounds. So
what does that mean? So obviously that sounds all great, we should go and ask people, but what do you practically mean? Because obviously Labour, very famously, have all-women shortlists. Now, all-women shortlist does jar with me in some ways, but actually when I look at the two evils, shall we say, women feeling like they're not able to get into Parliament and all-women shortlists, and I see what's happened over the last 10 years in terms of the amount of females on the Labour benches, I wonder, is that an evil that we as Conservatives should embrace for a little while?
In my opinion, absolutely not. I find all-women shortlists to be deeply patronising. I think that women are just as good as men, and to say to any women putting themselves forward that, you might be the best woman for the job, but there's no way you could be the best person for the job, so you have to be just with 4 other people who are also women. I find that to be incredibly patronising and, quite frankly, wrong. We're Conservatives, we believe people should be appointed on merit. And if you don't feel, and I don't think all women shortlists chime with that at all.
Those people who get into, who are helped out, what do you think that Women to Win or other organisations offer that they find most appealing?
So I think there's a campaign called Ask Her to Stand, which is not party political. And it's just, if you are at an event, particularly a business event or a parents' evening, just ask someone to stand, ask them to consider putting themselves forward. There are websites for whatever party. I actually can't remember any of them off the top of my head.
That's right, there's Google.
Yeah,
it's okay.
there's Google. There's websites for all the parties, and it's sort of a grassroots movement. It's, I think, linked to 50/50 Parliament, and it's just about getting out there and suggesting it to women and saying what it involves and saying, if you're good at these sort of skills, then, you know, would you be interested in doing this? And normally the answer is yes. And I do think women sometimes, in my experience, sometimes need a little bit more encouragement than men. It's the same with a job interview. When they've done these studies that say a man reads a list of skills and he has 5 out of 7 and thinks he'd be brilliant, and a woman has 6 out of 7 and she goes, oh no, I must never apply for that. Well, I think women do need a bit more of, yes, you would be good, you should go for it, rather than, have you thought about doing this? Yeah, sure, I'd be brilliant.
I mean, I tend to agree that men are better at bullshitting than women, definitely, from my experience. Sorry, am I paraphrasing?
I'm not sure that was what I was suggesting.
No, but so obviously, in a sort of very sort of nebulous concept type of way, the idea that we have 50% representation of men, 50% representation of women, that we have, you know, a good spread of all the different communities in our country, sort of obviously who would answer it, who would argue against that in that sense. But actually, why does it really matter? Why is it important that we have more women in public life?
Well, first of all, I would say the campaign 50/50 Parliament is a great name, but I think that, you know, there's roughly equal in the population, so if things are going well, we will have roughly 50/50 Parliament, but I'm no way saying if we, you know, have 10 more men and 5 fewer women, then that's a terrible disaster. It should just be roughly.
Yes. But the general point, why is it better if we have more women involved?
As I said, because women's life experiences are different to men's, and 50% or slightly more than 50% of the country are women, and if you want to have that voice in Parliament, you want their interests to be represented, and generally a different style of communication, a different way of communicating a message, then I think that's incredibly important.
Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found it interesting. If you've got any views, please do leave them in the comments section, but also please do be nice. Stay tuned for more videos, and hopefully see you again soon.